We'd now like to begin the 22nd Kawasaki International Eco-Business Forum. I am Suzuki from Kawasaki Environment Research Institute, serving as your MC today. Nice to meet you. Regarding today's forum, we provide English and Japanese simultaneous interpretation. Please turn on the receiver at your hand. Channel 1 for Japanese, Channel 2 for English. Please select the language of your choice. Now, before opening the forum, we'd like to have a Kawasaki City Mayor Fukuda Norihiko. He will deliver an address. Good morning, everyone. I sincerely thank you for attending the 22nd Kawasaki International Eco-Business Forum today. Yes, as mentioned in the opening ceremony, this year really year when we felt home the impact of climate change more than ever. And talking about more than ever, unprecedented. Yeah, Kawasaki held various events. During the summer day, in daytime, in summer, many cases we couldn't really hold events anymore. And the swimming pools for kids. Usually you go to swimming pools because it's hot, but the pool banned because the water is too hot in the swimming pool. So abnormal situations observed in various aspects of our life. That has been this year. Summary of this year, and not just in Japan, but this is happening all over the world. Just like you see in films, in cinemas, things are happening like films and cinemas, as reality, and then we wonder how we combat this situation. And this is a very theme that we will talk about, how to tackle climate change. And today, we have an advisor for Kawasaki City, advisor Symbiosis will deliver a lecture, and also Professor Fujita of Tokyo University will also deliver a keynote speech, and also we have a panel discussion participated by various panelists. So, how to strike a balance between climate change countermeasures and the well-being of citizens. Yes, this really relates to us. We should have a sense of ownership. So let's hear from them about the international expertise, and then let's have a good exchange of opinions so that we can think about how to tackle the situation in our own areas. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone participating in today's forum. That concludes my opening address, and nice to meet you. Thank you. And we are terribly sorry, but Mayor Fukuda will excuse himself to attend his next official duties. Next, we'd like to move to the part 1, special lectures. Special lectures are given by Mr. Fujita Tsuyoshi, Professor of the Department of Urban Engineering of the Graduate School of Engineering of Tokyo University, and Mr. Sueyoshi Takeshiro, Advisor on International Environment Policy for Kawasaki City, both of whom have participated in this forum since its first edition. First, Professor Fujita will give his lecture entitled Expectations for Transition from Urban Industrial Symbiosis to Green Innovation in Kawasaki. Professor Fujita, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I am a professor at the Graduate School of Tokyo University, working on the city engineering. So the theme here is the coexistence or symbiosis of the city and the areas, and how we are able to address the solutions for the climate change, or maybe we would be able to be allocated as the advanced area for the decarbonization. I think for the past 21 sessions, we had been discussing how we are able to link those activities to the local creations. However, I would like to review what we had been discussing in the first half of my presentation and the latter half of my presentation, I would like to maybe propose how we are able to deploy that to the real cases like climate change and carbon neutralities. So I would like to spend about 20 minutes for this topic. So this is a very busy slide. Sorry for this busy slide because I thought this would be handed out to all of you. However, unfortunately, you don't have it in front of you, so I would like to slow down my pace. At the city of Kawasaki, Eco Business Forum was started, but then we were one of the city called top runner when it comes to the eco town of Japan. And you have the history from the 1970. Well, back in 1970, people started to talk about there was a limit for the Earth to grow. So it was a concept that came out from the Western countries. However, in 1990, people started to realize that we are not taking any actions like industrial ecosystem or in the industrial metabolism. It seems that the industry didn't realize that we needed to look into the industry in a way similar to the nature ecosystem. And people started to realize that in 1990, and people were not taking any actions. And so people started to realize that the industry itself needs to change. So the concept of the eco-industrial park introduced by the United States University and METI in Japan had learned from that concept, and 26 eco-town were generated, started in 1997. And out of those 26 eco-town, Kawasaki City was named as one of those. And decarbonization, advanced city, or SDGI city linkage is something that we are expecting Kawasaki to be. So that's something I would like to talk about. So what we are happening in Ecotown in Kawasaki, this is an image diagram which was written by JFE, general managers. And Kawasaki's strength is the industry, of course, and circular economy needs to be considered along with the decarbonization. But in order to materialize that concept, the industry itself had to change. So these industries should be centered and then make the maybe garbage, energy, everything to be circulated. This is the image. And also, another uniqueness of Kawasaki City is the metropolitan area. This huge population and this industry are coexisting. So it's very rare in Japan and also from the global standpoint. And a similar thing is happening in China as well and Asian countries. However, decarbonization type climate change address needs to be considered from the metropolitan standpoint, and I think people are starting to realize that Kawasaki should be the one to other countries or cities are learning from. So that is a discussion going on. So Japan's ecotown concept, well, once again, Kawasaki is the ecotown named as #1 ecotown back in 1997. And Kawasaki led various kinds of plastic and home appliances and PET recycle factories. What's important here is not just to correct, however, how they are able to utilize that as an alternative resource of the natural resources. So waste plastics or the waste metals are melted, or maybe they are utilized at the scientific factories. So they are, Kawasaki City is actually practically utilizing those waste resources. Universities and teams and NPOs are working together to create stories and narratives into the fact. So we have been considering this from the qualitative standpoint. And this is the one cement factory's image. So it has made out of the limestone, clay, and coals. And instead of coal, use the plastics, and instead of clay, they use the dirt out of the waste. So Kawasaki City is already starting to utilize those waste resources and creating the database. And life cycle assessment is a methodology that we are applying to this to measure or calculate how much CO2 reduction has been achieved through this effort. And this is a graph that we have announced as a research outcome. So this is a cement creation without using any created resources, and actually about 30,000 tons of CO2 reduction has been achieved. But maybe we are able to expand the scope of this garbage collection to the city garbages as well, so that we are further able to reduce the CO2 by 30% as well. So the industry and city can live together to foster the further growth of the industry of a particular town and also the city as well. And this kind of a circulation rings are continuously generated in Kawasaki City. So Kawasaki City has many factories, and what kind of resources are circulately utilized, or maybe the water reutilization is happening. So those point-to-point efforts are now being connected, like those lines that you're looking at. So Kawasaki City is trying to, this is an image of the connection of the all the resources existing in Kawasaki, which are how those are connected. So Culttz University has started to introduce a kind of visualization, and we also utilize this concept to visualize our network, and it looks as though it is a brain cell, and this is called Synergy Network of Kawasaki and China, EU, United States Academic Forum is utilizing this image as well. And this exists, this network exists in Kawasaki City already. How we are able to utilize this for the circular economy, and also how we are able to leverage this to the carbon neutrality, maybe nature positive ecosystem protection. This is probably the area that we can also apply this image to. So EcoTown itself, we have 26 cities, starting from 1997 to 2015. Maybe 4 towns per year had been named as the EcoTown. As other than Kawasaki, Kitakyushu City is also the EcoTown, and the Ministry of Environment, or METI, and the cities have been in discussion. And still, the 26 EcoTown exist throughout Japan, and 170 recycled facilities are now being working. So Japan-based activities, like blue ones at the bottom, Kawasaki type, and Minamata City seems to have the similar coexistence between the industry and the city. And the city of Kitakyushu, trying to create the circular economy, and some areas are coexisting with the agriculture. So various kind of coexistence is happening in Japan, and we are able. Now I would like to shift my topic to how we are able to connect this to the climate change as well. So from SDG standpoint, Kawasaki City people are talking about, and I am also a committee member of the Cabinet SDGs committee.
Out of the 17 goals, the most is closest to the circulating 12, yes. And so on. And in Kawasaki, we have a revitalization of industry and innovation, and also garbage countermeasures. 3 and 8 and 9 are also involved. Not just them, though. Energy. For energy portion, we have a reuse of heat, energy reuse. So number 7, we have impact on 7 as well. And also more recently, in Kawasaki's industrial complexes, in nighttime, people go see is a night view. That's an example that we're beginning to see. In town development, we have a collaboration with the industries. So number 11 is relevant as well. And of course, number 13, in relation to climate change. And also, as in the case of cement factory I mentioned earlier, biomass, ligneous waste materials used as alternative fuels. So number 17 is also relevant. And also more than anything, in this way, citizens, like today, companies get together on a regular basis. That's number 18, reinforcement of partners. Number 17, reinforcement of number partnerships. So SDGs. So from 12 to under 16 other goals are also rolled out in Kawasaki. So what is happening in Kawasaki and then what's happening in eco-town systems should be generalized. At the Tokyo University and the seven other universities are working on that to create guidelines. That is part of our research. So using the 5 minutes or so given to me, I'd like to talk about how to roll these generalized countermeasures out. Several examples, 5 also. One, urban and industrial decarbonization, and then recycling materials center. That is the idea. This is another busy diagram. I'm sorry. So on the left-hand side, we have the past Kawasaki, and then on the right, we have a future Kawasaki city. So in the past, Kawasaki relied on imported materials, import of energies, including natural resources, but not just the Kawasaki industrial complex. Kawasaki's residential areas, Yokohama and Tokyo, we have energy and then resources exchange should be promoted so that we have more green arrows rather than red arrows for imports. So, recycling-based symbiosis of urban industry, circular economy and decarbonization might be achieved already at Kawasaki City. Discussion is ongoing. And then, but from a long time ago, we have been talking about the combinat, especially by utilizing hydrogen, reducing our reliance on carbon, carbon turned to hydrogen, and then that leads to carbon recycling and also carbon neutral power generation. Kawasaki can be a top runner in this, one of the top runners, and then we can roll out the effect to the peripheral areas from Kawasaki. So I think this is a keyword. So in this way, industrial urban symbiosis can be a keyword, and that is the next step. And then likewise, probably when you think of cities or Kawasaki City, yes, it is a hub for industries. So all kinds of products and also consumables are provided. So let's turn them into circular types so that in different regions we can have a efficient living environment. That is the concept captured in this another busy slide here. So when you look at the CNI articulation between industry and urban areas, this should be limited to resource or coexistence, but supply chain and then product value symbiosis as well. That is something we can have advantage of next for Kawasaki in a major fashion, and let's think about how to realize it in this and other opportunities coming next. And another development relates to Asia and the international aspect. So officially, actually, 10 years ago, with the Kawasaki City, with the Ministry of Environment, we created this diagram. At the time, Kawasaki had to become an eco-town, and then for circular economy and then the decarbonization, Kawasaki was running very fast. And then Chinese President Fujimi visited Kawasaki, and they wanted to emulate what Kawasaki was doing. And then Ministry of Environment and METI got wind of it, and then as a top player, country-to-country agreement was made. And then Kawasaki and Shenyang, city of Shenyang, sister cities, twin cities, just collaborate in circular economy and decarbonization. And then academic community like myself were involved as well. So in this way, Japan made Kawasaki-type circular economy and the decarbonization system. In this case, it was rolled out to China, to Asia, and then a scheme and framework were created back then. One of them, just didn't go beyond the being a model, but we wanted to create an eco-town inside Kawasaki City. And actually, in the local and then the central governments drew a blueprint. And in China, yes, they do have such areas. One of them is here, based on Kawasaki's model. JFE type recycling technology rolled out in China, or Lismax chemical hydrogen technology rolled out in China. In this way, companies collaborate with each other, and then local governments collaborate with each other, and then evidence provided by academic community, scholars, to support such efforts. Started 10 years ago. Yes, we today regularly visit Shenyang and Dalian to have discussions as well. And then finally, 2 slides from me. When it comes to urban industrial symbiosis network or action for industrial symbiosis, yes, the idea, concept comes from Europe or from America, but the actions came from Japan, from Kawasaki. So, and then these things are, penetrating into South Korea and others. And then more recently, in the G7 summit, industrial symbiosis was one of the themes that picked up in the G7, meeting. And then now G7 has a task force for that as well. So that being the case, Kawasaki's industrial symbiosis is garnering attention from all over the world. This should lead to growing innovation. In that sense, we were relying on fossil fuels and mass production, mass consumption, but now we have to understand the limit of the Earth, the recipient of our activities, and that is not clear. And also, when we rely on limited resources, this can lead to the destruction of the environment. That is happening in Africa, in other parts of Asia as well. So when we try to proceed with the industrialization, urbanization, then Kawasaki model can be rolled out as a breakthrough for emerging industrialization and urbanization. This should lead to an innovation. That is my expectation. On that note, I'd like to close my speech at this point because I have overused up my time. But thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Professor Fujita. Next, Advisor Symbiosis will give his lecture entitled Climate Change and the Role of Kawasaki City. Advisor Symbiosis, please. Good morning once again, everyone. Capacity audience in the venue. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Mayor of Kawasaki. Joking aside, in this forum, I was given this homework to talk about toward realizing a sustainable city. What is the message for the future? So, message for the future, it's quite difficult, isn't it? What should we say? As Mayor introduced at the beginning, I have been involved in this forum for 3 decades. So personally, I have some things in mind about the Kawasaki City, and I hope that will serve as my message for the future for you. And then the title is Climate Change and the Role of Kawasaki City. I wanted to say responsibility of Kawasaki City, but the Mayor Fukuda talked about how terrible this past summer was. And then before the COP30, which opened the other day, the United Nations has released various types of information. For example, average temperature of this year, since 1850 compared to 1850s, probably, second or third highest. The first highest, the highest was, as you know, last year. The second highest was 2023, the year before that. Now, if this is to rank top 3, then 2023, 24, and 25, 3 years in a row, we have a top rankers.
This is extraordinary, right? So COP30 had the Geneva report. If this trend continues, the average temperature rise would be 2.3 to 2.5 with the optimistic viewpoint. NDC which is the effort announced by government, that will reach out to 2.8 degrees. It is very hard to imagine. So this is where we are at the climate change. So this is something we have to have as a basic notion. Otherwise, we will probably put some measures which looks flashy only. So before I get into my presentation, how Japan should address this climate change, and also where we are at this moment, I would like to give you one tip. The Guterres mentioned about this COP30. The evolution of the energy has started. The renewable energy of revolution had been started. So we are reaching out to the historical friction point. This is the energy reform, the fossil fuel to the renewable energy. And in the midst of this change, how Japan is doing at green energy is something I would like to explain using this slide. I'm sorry, I thought someone was flipping the slide. This is a material that I care a lot. GDP growth rate and also the CO2 emissions trend. This two decoupling is what the global market is trying to do. The market is growing, however, and also the CO2 reduction. Those two need to have more and more deviations or differences. But compared to the past 30 years trend, the EU, on the left-hand side, you see this mouse of the. It looks as though the mouth is wide open, but so overall, market green economy is progressing in EU. However, on the right-hand side, you see the Japan status. The GDP, the economic growth is about 3.1%. And it is half of the GDP. However, the CO2 reduction has not been reached. So you don't see the wide mouth open like the EU, which means that Japan's green economy transition is sluggish, which is a fact that the Japan's economy's global competitiveness is being lost. That's how I interpret out of this graph. I hope you also have some thoughts around this. So CO2 need to be reduced. However, GDP growth rate will be also suppressed because of the CO2 reduction. That is a concept about 2 decades ago, but we are now in 21st century. So we need to think about how we are able to grow the economy as we reduce the CO2. So we need to transition the economy in that manner, and I think it is something we need to seriously think about at Kawasaki City as well. So my expectation to the city of Kawasaki? Well, actually, my expectation is rising. Why Kawasaki City? As we look back on the history of Kawasaki City, 1960s and 70s, Japan was under the huge growth period, economic growth period, and Kawasaki City had supported that growth. But because we were only focusing on to the economic growth, and the pollution issue had become very serious. And the air pollution was so heavy or serious, and we were not able to enjoy the blue sky. And I commuted over the Tamagawa River with a train, and it looked really dirty. And today, was able to enjoy the mountain Fuji, and also now the Tamagawa River water is drinkable. So the Kawasaki City had overcome all the pollution issues. And Kawasaki City, I believe, has the capacity to further grow from current state. About 20 years ago, 2 years ago, JFT Steel stopped its furnace. And Mayor Fukuda gave a comment. We are studying towards the coming 100 years, and this needs to be the model case of Japan, and Kawasaki City was challenged. I think his aspiration is quite good, and this is what Kawasaki City has as a strength. But the aspiration itself does not materialize our vision. You need to measure whether you have the capacity to do this or not. But this is just my personal opinion, but Kawasaki City's latent capacity is quite expected going forward, because they are able to provide the natural energy. And the green economy needs to be led. I think Kawasaki City is a kind of a center of the green economy. And the urban areas and industry can coexist, and this is the global or international model, as Professor Fujita mentioned earlier. So Kawasaki City has a latent capability to be the leader of this. And this is just my personal opinion. The climate change policy should start from the transition to CO2-free natural energy resources, and utilizing that energy, transition to industries dependent on fossil fuels. So industry itself needs to change. The structure of the industry needs to be changed, and then the change to the natural energy resources will be leveraged. And in order to do that, the economic model needs to be changed. The 20th century economic structure will not materialize what we are advocating. And there's another path towards the future. In order to materialize this, the society needs to accept this change. This is the social transformation. So the climate change is not just about the CO2 reduction, but ultimately it is a matter of how you are able to change the society. You need to think about the path towards that transformation. I think it is a way to come up with the right solution of the climate change. And global strength or holistic capability is carried by Kawasaki City. That's my personal opinion. Well, this is just a latent capability, and it's not blooming, so it needs to be leveraged. So in order to leverage this capacity, we need to learn from the history humbly. If you have something to look back on, you need to really learn from the past, and also you need to have the courage to create the future. So in order to create the future, you need to have the courage to break something you had the past. And also, it is also about the science issue as well, as Professor Fujita mentioned. Also, you need to listen to the voice of the science, making decision and taking action with logic and reasons. It's quite illogical what we are hearing from the society, and that will destruct the future of Japan.
And what do we cherish as society in the end? That is the question. Sustainability first. Sustainability. it is sustainability that we have to realize. However, when Japan met the word sustainability, we got it wrong for some reason. Chronologically longer, that was considered to mean sustainable. So sustainable is everywhere, used everywhere to mean longer duration. But actually, sustainability is about bringing justice and fairness to society. And also fairness with nature, and moreover, not just the current generation, but the next future generations and current generation. Fairness in between. So fairness at the bottom of society means creating a sustainable society. I find that very important as a perspective. Yes, at the end, I wanted to say at the end, yes, good Japan can exist in a good world. If the world is in chaos, Japan cannot be in good shape. So without a good Japan, good Kawasaki cannot exist. So by creating a good Kawasaki, we can help build a good Japan. As a result, we can give birth to a good world. This circularity is something I'd like to ask Kawasaki citizens to join forces and create. Kawasaki citizens, Kawasaki people are not working for themselves alone. No, for their happiness. No, they can work, and then as a result, Japan can be better, the world can be better, and then that benefit will come back to Kawasaki City. I think that's how it works. So I just gave my random thoughts, but when it comes to Kawasaki City, I think Kawasaki has a past history and experience that are very important when we think of the future. And in the past, we didn't realize, but they caused pollutions. And then once we realized, we made efforts to overcome pollutions. And then you have made it. You have a track record. And Kawasaki cherishes such experience. That is why Kawasaki can realize a sustainable society, sustainable Earth, because of that in the real sense. So I'd like to invite you to have a discussion, have that in mind when you have a discussion like this one. Please have it somewhere in your mind. Please always have sustainability somewhere in your heart when you have discussions like this, and put idea into practice, I hope. In conclusion, many of you might know this. This is my favorite teaching from people long ago. Maybe it comes from Native American wisdom. When the last tree is cut down, the last fish eaten, and the last stream poisoned, you will then realize that you cannot eat money. Kids go hungry. They come home hungry, open the fridge to find nothing. The kids say, "No, there's nothing there. Shall we eat a mobile phone? Shall we eat money?" Would the kids say that? Edible money. I don't think that exists. You use money to make things, and then that something is edible, right? And the second favorite words of wisdom: treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents. It's not an inheritance. It was loaned to you by your children from your next generation. And then final words to you is this: if you are entrusted with something important, if you break or stain it, do you just say, "Sorry, I stained it and broke it, but just return it as it is anyway"? I don't think any one of you will do that. in this room, you will restore it to its original condition before they entrusted it to you, and then return it to them. I think that is a responsibility that we have to the next generation. That concludes my lecture. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Advisor Sueyoshi. Once again, please give another round of big applause to Advisor Sueyoshi. Now, we will change the layout, so please wait a while. Next, we'd like to move to part 2, panel discussion on countering climate change and then enhance citizen well-being. What should we do? We'd like the panel discussion on that. We'd like to have Mr. Yoshida Tetsuro, Senior Researcher at City Task Force of Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, IGES, as well coordinator. In part 2, we have a on-site participants and also online participants, as well as pre-recorded videos. We'd like to ask in the venue, we have Mr. Eric of IGES and also Ms. Meifa from Asia Center for Air Pollution Research, ECAP. Regarding online participants, we have Texas University Austin, Professor David, Ms. Leah, and Mr. Philip, and the pre-recorded videos provided by Mr. Mattis of City of Paris School of Engineering and Mr. Ryan of Wellcome Trust. So first, we'd like to have an introduction of their efforts, panelists' efforts on the climate change countermeasure. And then we'd like to ask Ms. Meifa, and then we have a discussion of 5 members who are on site and as well as online. Now over to Mr. Yoshida. Okay, good morning. I am Yoshida from Institute for Global Environmental Strategy. Thank you for coming here despite your busy schedule today. So in part 2, we have advisor following lectures by Advisor Sueyoshi and then Professor Fujita. We want to think about the worsening impact of climate change. Right. Yeah, previously, when you say climate change, it didn't really bring anything that you feel home in your daily life. However, in recent years, each year we see record high temperatures and also intensive rainfalls happening everywhere, and also mountain fires or in various parts of the world. We see that in news. As such, since last year, we have been receiving support from UK's Wellcome Trust to talk about the climate change impact and then impact on well-being in our research. So from Japan, we have Hachinohe City, Niigata City, and also Kawasaki City. And from outside of Japan, we have City of Paris and then City of Austin participating in a project. And there are quite a lot of common challenges we found, and there are different challenges and backgrounds amongst these participating cities, and we were able to learn from each other in a project supported by Wellcome Trust. So in part 2, we will invite people who were involved in this project from America, from France. From France, we have only video recorded participation, but on site, we have Ms. Meifa and then Mr. Eric with us. We will hear from them about the results of their research and the challenges they have found. And today we want to, make a special mention that we have American participants, current, graduate school students. So we want to have a perspective of younger people as well, coming from our US participants. So now we'd like to move on to presentations by our panelists. First, let's go to Texas University Austin Professor David, Mr. Philip, and Ms. Leah's joint presentation, please.
Thank you very much. This is David Eaton. I'll be introducing the heat resilience in Austin, and then Leah Martineau and Philip Maruri will continue with the details. This is a picture of downtown Austin. You can see what a active place it is. Let's go to the next slide. Austin, Texas is a growing city, one of the fastest growing regions in the United States. When I came to Austin 50 years ago, there were 300,000 population. Today, it's nearly 1.2 million, and it's the 10th largest city in the United States, and it's growing very rapidly. If you look at the figure on the left-hand side of the chart, the climate chart, it shows the climate. There's about 600 millimeters of rainfall on average in Austin, and you can see that there are two periods where there's higher rainfall in May and June, and then in September, October period. And we have great heat during May through October, and it's getting hotter, as Philip and Leah will discuss. Next slide, please. Austin is working to address heat, and they're doing it through two programs. One is the Heat Resilience Playbook in the Office of Resilience, that is data collecting and increasing public awareness. They're looking at cooling for high heat risk areas and looking for infrastructure upgrades to provide some heat resilience. In addition, there is the Austin Climate Equity Plan. And this is the effort by Austin to deal with the climate change. And three of the programs that address heat are the building emissions reduction, trying to reduce those emissions, electric vehicles, the increase in electric vehicles, and the use of public space for green infrastructure, using parks and other natural areas to try and address some of the heat issues. Next slide. As part of this effort, the City of Austin and the University of Texas are cooperating very closely together, dealing with these issues. And this, of course, has been supported by IGES, the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. And one of the ways is the cooperation through a policy research project that the two students are going to report on. They're going to be talking on the Project Working Group for Urban Heat. And both Leah and Philip continued their research, going to internships in Japan. In addition, the City of Austin is cooperating with other units of the university on heat-related issues. And now I'll turn this over to Leah and Philip.
Next slide, please. The city has worked with the university to study current and future climate conditions, and their work was published by the city in a Austin Future Climate Report. Per the report, as Dr. Eden has already said, Austin is a warm city. It historically experiences a summertime average daily high temp of 35 degrees Celsius in a middle emissions pathway, which represents the ICUC's Shared Socioeconomic Pathway 1. This average daily high will increase to 38.5 degrees Celsius. In a high emissions pathway, which represents the Socioeconomic Pathway 5, this average daily high will increase to nearly 42 degrees Celsius. These trends are in line with global trends. Currently, Austin does not experience daily highs greater than 43 degrees Celsius, but in the worst scenario, this could increase to 18 days each summer with those extreme high temperatures. These trends have serious health implications, but solutions exist to reduce local temperatures. I'll now hand it over to Leah to discuss some of these solutions, especially those explored by the City of Austin. Next slide.
Thank you. For our project, we wanted to compare how different heat adaptation solutions can reduce heat-related illnesses. So for this, as we've talked about, we've looked at Austin's heat resilience playbook and their climate equity plan to find what they already plan to do for heat adaptation. And then we looked at studies to estimate these different solutions' cooling effects. So for green spaces in parks, they can cool areas up to 12 degrees Fahrenheit. For cool roofs, they can lower temperatures by around 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And then as Austin is planning to switch their entire vehicle fleet to electric vehicles, this could reduce near surface temperatures by about 1 degrees Fahrenheit. Next slide, please. So to support the City of Austin in prioritizing heat solutions, we also looked for more options to suggest. So this is permeable pavements. This can lower air temperature about 1 degrees Fahrenheit. Water features like fountains can reduce temperatures by 3 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And green roofs and walls can reduce temperatures up to 4 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit, but this is depending on orientation and location. Next slide, please.
As a part of our collaboration with the city, we sought to quantify the risks of extreme heat as presented by health outcomes and quantify the benefits of reducing extreme heat through benefits in health outcomes. Therefore, we investigated how extreme heat burdened emergency health infrastructure in the city. We worked with the city to analyze emergency dispatches of paramedics for presumed cases of heat-related illness. Daily dispatches of emergency management services, or EMS resources, to local citizens were regressed against local temperature data to understand the relationship between the two. And this regression was used to predict future cases under climate change based on projections from the city. Then, to quantify the health co-benefits of solutions, we applied reductions found in literature to Austin's temperature projections, these reductions that were discussed by Leah. This would demonstrate the possible case reduction that would occur as a result of these temperature reductions. In the table in this slide, our rough methods estimated that the cases per day will increase to about 18 and a half daily cases in the worst scenario for an average summertime day. This is considering temperature and population increases, and this does not consider population acclimatization. However, by increasing green spaces at just 20% at a 20% magnitude, this could reduce cases by 4 on a daily basis. Next slide. These methods, however, involve a lot of inaccuracies and assumptions, especially by applying research from outside of Austin to the city. In addition, the model that we used was using a very basic regression that is not the most effective for prediction. Over the summer, therefore, I worked with researchers at Hokkaido University within their Graduate School of Medicine to refine this regression model. And I sought to use Austin-specific data to quantify the co-benefits of one specific intervention, green space. This was done using satellite imagery, and cases were therefore divided based on whether they occurred in parts of the city with high urban greenery or with low urban greenery. This is visualized in the map as seen here. I'm working to finalize these results, but current results demonstrate that health responses to extreme temperatures are much less potent when occurring in areas with higher urban greenery. I will now turn the discussion back to Leah so she can discuss what she did over the summer.
Slides, please. So as Philip was saying, this summer I continued our research to include Indigenous and local knowledge for heat adaptation. My supervisor and I expanded our focus beyond just human health to include agriculture and ecosystems. So in the top left corner, you can see cultural burns. This can help lower wildfire risk and protect ecosystems. Agroforestry, which is using tree shade for crops, and zai pits, which is digging deep pits to encourage water capture, can help crops adapt to heat and drought. For buildings, Iranian wind catchers can cool indoor spaces to reduce our reliance on air conditioning. And culturally rooted cooling diets from India and China can help people adapt right away. We hope Austin can lead by example with using both science and community wisdom to create a cooler and healthier future. And unless Dr. Eaton or Philip have any other concluding thoughts, this concludes our presentation.
Thank you.
Professor David, Mr. Philip, Ms. Leah, thank you very much. Really, when it comes to America, in news, we hear about the President Trump's attitude denying climate change in many cases. But in America, we have Philip-san and Leah-san specializing and studying, all climate change and the environment. That's very encouraging. So let's move to the next presentation by Ms. Zhu Meihua from Asia Center for Air Pollution Research, please. Okay, good morning. I am Zhu Meihua from Asia Center for Air Pollution Research. This time, I'm very grateful for this fantastic opportunity. And as Mr. Yoshida mentioned earlier, in research, we deal with Niigata City, Hachinohe City, and Kawasaki City participating in a case study. So our center is located in Niigata. So I will talk about the situation in Niigata. I'll talk about Niigata. Thank you. Please bear with me. Next, please. Probably you know this, but in Japan, in various areas, various local governments have global warming action plans. Yes, local governments make it. Actually, it comes from the national, plan for global warming countermeasures with a legal backing. So legal mandate, under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of the Environment. So their local government action plans have to be made by local governments. So one thing I'd like to highlight in this is that they, in all local governments, do they make the same plan? No. Different local governments can refer to their different geographical natural conditions on industrial structures. These are taken into consideration, fully into consideration, and they can make a local government action plan. That is the basic philosophy of this law, mandating the creation of local government action plan. In Niigata, in 2009, Niigata created Niigata's local government action plan against global warming. They have had 3 phases, and in 2023, they just had the latest review of it. So they are about to adopt their 4th edition. The City Hall officials are working at hard to finalize it. So starting next fiscal year, they are working. They will have a new local government action plan for Niigata City. Next slide, please. I think you have seen diagrams like this many times. But when we do focus on Niigata City, yes, already 1.5 degrees in a unit of 100 years rising. And another interesting thing I would like to show you is this. Yeah, when you talk about the climate change, you talk about the weather and temperature as the main talking points. But actually, when you look at the ocean, sea surface temperature is very vulnerable, easily impacted by climate change. As you can see here, if you look at the Sea of Japan, especially Sea of Japan facing Niigata Prefecture, has had a sea level rise. Sea surface temperature rise has been the greatest in this body of water, we have the greatest rise of temperature on the sea surface. Next page, please. And yes, when apart from being a snow country, Niigata is also a rice production center. So by temperature rise, Niigata is affected in terms of it's a rice farming, rice crops, damaged badly, especially for farmers of rice. That annual income has decreased by 13%. That is the situation they are in. Accordingly, the Niigata Prefecture and the Niigata University are collaborating to study heat-resistant species of rice. That is an urgent task. So at the moment, they have the first round of countermeasures in their research. They have had quite good success in developing a heat-resistant species of rice. And apart from that, in Japan, we have a lot of earthquakes. And climate change brings economic damages. According to the Cabinet Office research, actually, since 1978, in the 20 period since 1978, and also another 20-year period after 1998, if you compare the two 20-year periods, the economic losses coming from earthquakes, account for 660 billion, and then climate change economic loss will be 2024 billion, so quite many times over. So yes, when we talk about the climate change, we usually talk about the temperature higher and getting hotter. Maybe that's come to your mind first. Actually, when you look at our life, economic losses are happening, and 3 times more economic losses are caused by climate change than earthquakes. And then compared to 20 years ago, threefold, and then 1.5 times more compared to natural disasters. But the climate change economic losses are twice as much. And then that is a doubling every 10 years. Okay, next page, please. That being the case, with that in mind, we are conducting our research. We are not focusing on major cities of Japan, mid-sized cities in Japan, rather. And we're looking at the situation. And then by taking counter measures against climate change, what kind of energy trend do we see? And how CO2 and then PM2 emissions are changing. We are calculating them with regard to mid-sized cities of Japan. And if you do business as usual, on a drifting basis, if you don't do anything, that's one scenario. On the other scenario is if you implement countermeasures against global warming, and we compare the two scenarios, two patterns. Yes, we'd like to show you the two patterns. Next page, please. Niigata City, as you know, is an ordinance-designated city, and there are 20 ordinance-designated cities in Japan. Amongst these cities, Niigata is characterized by energy consumption structure, industry, living sectors and transport sectors are very evenly split in terms of energy consumption, 50-50 pretty much. So what does that mean? So take Kawasaki City, for example, another ordinance designated cities. Yes, energy consumption by industry is by far greater than living or transport. So, if the industry sector does make effort, CO2 emissions will go down. But in the case of Niigata, all industries will have to, all of them have to make equal efforts. Otherwise, CO2 emissions levels do not go down. So that is kind of a difficult industrial structure that they have in Niigata. Nonetheless, if you look at the 2021 track record, Niigata was a third amongst the designated ordinance cities in terms of reduction of the CO2 emissions. By the way, the greatest reduction came from Kumamoto and Kobe. They are the top rankers, first and second rankers in terms of doing well in reducing CO2 emissions. And the next one, please. As a result of our research, we can show this. So let's say 2050 is a goal point. We look at the energy consumption of different sectors, households, commercial and transport and manufacturing and so on. So to give you an image, please look at this. Next page, please. and on a drifting or a business as usual basis on the one hand, and then the carbon neutral countermeasure scenario, and the CO2 and then PM 2.5 reductions emissions are compared. So if each time you implement a policy, both CO2 and the PM 2.5 reduction will happen. Both will be reduced. You can kill two birds with one stone. As you can see here, for example, regarding 2050, CO2 emissions will be reduced by over 80%, and then PM 2.5 will be about halved, according to our research by implementing climate change countermeasures. And next one, okay, this is a summary of our research results, and in Niigata City. Around 2050, when you look at around 2050, we can expect a very high core benefit. That is shown by data, and also carbon neutrality and also global warming prevention measures can be implemented. Then we can accelerate the adoption of renewable energies. Next page, please.
So just showing all the flashy outcomes. However, you never know whether that would be real or not. And one of the example is the EV, electric vehicle. And at the keynote, this was discussed, the Japan and global situation differences. And as for EV, what exactly is the gap between Japan and the global market? I think you'll be able to understand the difference. China seems to be the most advanced country. As opposed to this, Japan is very low in penetration, just 1%. Meanwhile, the government's vision is to reach 50% by 2030 and 90% by 2050. That is a very big slogan that the government is addressing. However, in order to do that, the government needs to have a strong determination and also must gain the understanding from the community in order to reach out to that vision. So Niigata City actually is ranked as worst 10, maybe second from the bottom. Next, please. The renewable energies demand. There are many discussions going on to address this matter, but the renewable energies capability probably is very high in Niigata City. However, the actual implementation rate is very low. So Niigata City is progressing its global warming countermeasures, but this is a big challenge for the city. So I went through my presentation very quickly, but I just wanted to introduce the status of the city of Niigata. Thank you very much for listening. Neva-san, thank you very much. There are many challenges and also the potential. Niigata City, you mentioned about the rise. We don't have the attendance from the city of Hachinohe today, but they see the huge reduction of the fisheries. And I think we are starting to see the huge impact to Japanese economy. And also the EV penetration rate, Japan is very low. And also, although we have the high potential of the renewable energy, but the implementation rate is very low. I think you were able to disclose various challenges that Niigata City has. So moving on to the next presentation, IJS Eric Sassman-san. Well, about this welcome fund is what we would like Eric to present.
Thank you very much, Yoshida-san and colleagues from Kawasaki. It's a privilege to be here today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this project called Leveraging Co-Benefits for Healthy Net Zero Transitions in Japanese and other G7 cities. This project is a sort of overarching framework for many of the presentations that you will see here today. And can I go to the next slide, please? So the motivation and the main goal of this project is to provide Japanese and other cities in G7 countries with evidence, experience, and tools that will help them bring this health argument into their climate discussions. And I think the key thing I want to emphasize here is we've seen some challenges already, but the point is when we put an emphasis on health and we communicate that to our citizens and our politicians, that can help motivate investment, it can help motivate action, and it can help put a spotlight on the near-term gains from addressing a long-term global problem. Can I go to the next slide, please? As already mentioned, we're working in 3 cities in Japan, as well as Austin, Texas, and Paris, France, to help those cities put health at the center of their climate change plans. Can I go to the next slide, please? The project itself has several unique features. So one is that we're really trying to strengthen this connection between science and policy, and I recognize our advisor, Shioshi-san, put a strong emphasis on making those connections. So we're trying to bring scientific evidence to make policies stronger and actions more implementable. The second thing we're trying to do is make real on-the-ground impact. So when Philip talks about trying to reduce heat stroke in Austin, we're trying to communicate that to the city so that they'll invest more in green spaces so we have fewer incidences of heat stroke, trying to do something that's actionable on the ground. And last but not least, while we're working with these 5 different cities to put health at the center of their climate plans, we're also trying to generate scalable models. So we don't want to just influence these 5 cities, but demonstrate in different ways that health can be inserted into the climate argument to raise ambitions on climate change and bring about healthier people and healthier places in many parts of the world, not just Japan. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, I'm going to reflect a little bit on the Hachinohe case because they're not here today, but they're absolutely vital to our project. And one of the reasons they're so important is this is a smaller city. I think many colleagues are familiar with Hachinohe. It's about 200,000 people in Aomori Prefecture. And slightly different from, for instance, Kawasaki or Niigata, Austin, or Paris for that matter. I mean, Kawasaki is a shrinking city. I'm sorry, Kawasaki, Hachinohe is a shrinking city, and it has a lot of unused farmland. So one of the things that we're trying to do is work with city policymakers to show them when they invest in renewable energy in that unused farmland, they can also generate a new source of revenue for farmers, and this can also replace, coal or fossil fuels, to go back to Meihua's point, and that reduces air pollution levels throughout Japan and also leads to significant improvements in health. And this modeling result you can see right here demonstrates that you can not only estimate what are the reductions in air pollution, but what are the improvements in health and how much money will be saved by the Japanese government from having to deal with different illnesses caused by that air pollution. Now, I know air pollution is not a serious problem in Japan, but even very marginal improvements in air quality can lead to significant health improvements throughout the country. And Hachinohe is an example of this type of approach where we work within that context to demonstrate health benefits that can be important, not just for Hachinohe, but other parts of Japan as well. Can I go to the next slide, please? Now, another thing, as I mentioned, we're trying to generate a scalable model. So we had students from the University of Texas at Austin share some of the work they did on resilience to heat. But another group at the University of Texas Austin also looked across different cities' climate change plans to understand how much they were integrating health into those plans. And you can see this map right here. We looked across 50 different cities with the assistance and supervision of Professor Eaton. And we've set up a scoring system to understand how well the cities were doing in terms of linking their different sectoral actions, energy, transport, industry, nature-based solutions, how they're linking those sectoral actions to health, to equity, social equity concerns, and to a broad range of environmental concerns. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is a very detailed description of the framework we use to code or to go through these different plans. But basically, over the course of 9 months, we coded all 50 of those cities' plans to see how many links they were making between climate change, health, environment, and then these social equity issues. And based upon that, we're now developing a tool. Can I go to the next slide, please? A tool to demonstrate how different cities are making those connections. So once again, we've done this for 50 cities. And the point here is to show where those connections might exist. And this is the case of Albuquerque, New Mexico, a city in the southwestern part of the US. But it's to show the cities, based on their current plans, where those connections exist. And it also is to show them opportunities for making stronger connections to whether it be things like nature-based solutions and heat resilience, or electric vehicles, as Meha was talking about, or even to things like dietary changes. It's show the city's opportunities for strengthening those connections and then better communicating that to the citizens. This is a way that you can make your city not only good to address climate change, but good for the health and happiness of the population. So this is just a very rough illustration, but we have 50 cities in the US like this, and we're doing something very similar for Japan too. So I'd like to end there, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hi, Eric-san, どうもありがとうございます。
Thank you, Eric-san. Right. Really, IGS project. Ever since you started this, various tools have been created. I think, I hope you can expect a lot from Kawasaki City colleagues as well. Next, we'd like to have a presentation from France. Due to time differences, they are in midnight. So they asked you to provide a pre-recorded videos. So let's start with Mathis-san of the City of Paris School of Engineering. His video will be played first.
Everyone, I am Mathis Cavagnier at EIVP Paris, France. I worked at LSCE as a 3-month intern this summer under the guidance of Katsuma Satanaka and Eric Zussman. Our study looked into the co-benefits of Paris Climate Action Plan till 2050 with a focus on road transport. This project is part of the Welcome to Us project entitled Leveraging Co-Benefits for Healthy Net Zero Transitions in Japanese and other G7 cities, a scalable approach for transformative change. The Paris Climate Action Plan 2024-2030 outlines a roadmap to achieve carbon neutrality by mid-century. The transport component of this plan includes expanding low-emission zones, reducing the speed limit to 30 km/h in Paris, and promoting walking, cycling, and public transit. However, the road transport sector does not have clear targets. Therefore, we first needed to determine how to assess the co-benefits of the transport sector. Our study aims to show how the decarbonization of road transport sector in Paris could influence climate and public health outcomes over the coming decades. First, we developed a baseline and an ambitious scenario. Then we calculated the climate and air quality benefits. And finally, we quantified the health benefits. First, this is an example of measures in the Paris Climate Action Plan. A low traffic zone was implemented recently in Paris. This zone includes the 4 first districts in Paris center, as you can see on the map. Based on street-level data from Next Company, we assessed a decrease of pollution and traffic. Results show a decrease of 28% of private vehicles cumulated traffic, while for Paris the trend is a decrease of 3% per year. Therefore, if generalized, there will be 25% less private vehicle traffic in Paris. This is a target for 2050 in our study. We developed 2 scenarios for the Paris road transport till 2050. The baseline scenario assumes the continuation of current measures and trends, gradual renewal of the fleet, existing regulations, and moderate growth in mobility. The ambitious scenario, by contrast, assumes further enhancement of measures following the Paris Climate Action Plan. The scenarios have been developed using the LEAP platform. You can see the tree diagram used for each type of vehicles and powertrain with the pollutants assessed. Here are the CO2 emission pathways of the baseline and ambitious scenarios. CO2 emissions from the baseline scenario only moderately decreased due to lower EV penetration rates. In contrast, those from the ambitious scenario show a sharp decrease of buses emissions thanks to the rapid electrification and fuel switching in the fleet till 2028, combined with higher EV penetration. Now you can see the results of the study. The gain of the ambitious scenario relative to the baseline is limited for PM2.5. This is due to the emissions from brakes and tires. Such non-tailpipe emissions are predicted to persist due to the increasing share of electric vehicles. This figure compares our ambitious scenario with the emission estimates in 2024 and the 2050 targets of the Paris Climate Action Plan. Our scenario slightly overestimates the current CO2 emissions, but it is consistent with the 2050 targets. Now, the climate and health benefits. We used a climate model called ACC2 and calculated the global mean temperature response to each emission scenario. The figure on the left shows that the ambitious scenario can avoid half of the warming that would be caused by the baseline scenario. We used a well-established parameterization to calculate the number of premature deaths due to PM2.5. We found a substantially lower number of premature deaths under ambitious scenario. In fact, the ambitious scenario could therefore generate substantial economic savings amounting to over 1.1 billion euros by 2050 by saving approximately 552 lives. This could reduce the costs of implementing the climate plan and bring more resources to support implementation also. I will leave the final slide summarizing our findings. Thank you for listening.
Hi.
Okay, Mathis-san's presentation. Thank you very much. Right. Yeah, in Paris, actually, we visited Paris as part of the research. And then local city officials greeted us, and then we had a discussion with them. And when you think of France, yes, France had a higher percentage of 78% of nuclear power. So emissions were always low in France because of the wide adoption of the nuclear power generation. And even then, even with the already low emissions, Paris citizens go overseas and emit CO2s. They even calculate that, and they try to reduce that as well. So they are very, from our perspective, they are very advanced in terms of climate change counter measures. That was very eye-opening to visit and learn what they are doing in France. So, okay, the final presentation from Welcome Trust of the UK. Really, they provide a funding to this program. So yeah, huge amount of it. Yeah, they have a lot of a fund in their in them, and then Ryan-san from the Welcome Thailand will deliver this message.
Hi everyone, greetings from London. My name is Ryan Leung, and I'm a research manager in the Climate and Health team at Welcome Trust. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this panel discussion at the forum in Kawasaki. I apologize for not being able to join you live due to the time differences, but I trust the event has been going well and all of you are enjoying it. As the founder of this research project led by IJS, I've been asked to speak about why Welcome is dedicated to supporting research in climate and health. I will also share some reflections on this project, especially as I had the opportunity to join the study tour in Paris with the Free Cities and the IJS team just a year ago. So let me first introduce Welcome Trust. Welcome Trust is founded in 1936, based in London. The trust was established in accordance with the will of Sir Henry Wellcome, who is an American and British pharmaceutical entrepreneur who, along with his colleagues, pioneered the sale of medicine in tablet form. Upon its passing, the Wellcome Trust was created from its endowment to act as a health research funder dedicated to supporting science to solve the urgent health challenges facing everyone. By 2025, our financial endowment is at £37 billion now, and we currently dispense about £1 billion annually in grant making. As a politically and financially independent foundation, we achieve our organizational objectives by enabling and investing in research, influencing policy change, and engaging with people. In 2020, we underwent a process to develop our new 10-year strategy with a commitment to allocate about £16 billion over this period. We reflect on the key questions, which is what is Wellcome most uniquely positioned to achieve? How can we utilize our independency to advance scientific research and tackle pressing health challenges? After completing the strategy development process, we decided to concentrate our efforts on developing solutions for three critical global health challenges, which are infectious disease, mental health, and my area of focus, which is climate and health. And all these focus areas would also complement our ongoing commitment to scientific discovery research, which is the core of what Wellcome has been doing and supporting. So let me talk about the reason why we focus on climate and health. The main reason is because we see the climate crisis is also a health crisis. Climate change affects human health in many different ways, as you can see in the infographic here. Rising levels of greenhouse gas emissions would affect the ecosystem, disturb our climate and weather systems, which leads to worsening climate-sensitive health risks, such as air quality, food security, extreme heat, and all other social impacts. And our mission within our climate and health program is to put health at the heart of climate change actions. And we do it through those three goals that you can see in the slide. Our goals are to build the transdisciplinary climate and health knowledge and action ecosystem so that we can act urgently in response to the health impacts of climate change. Our second goal is to establish context-specific evidence based on climate and health. And our last goal is to bring those evidence to ensure those evidence can drive actions by decision makers. And as part of our efforts in climate and health, we launched the G7 mitigation funding call in October 2022, aiming to fund research projects to generate evidence on the health co-benefits of mitigation actions in G7 countries. And through this call, we funded 10 research projects spanning across US, UK, and Japan to look at the health co-benefits of mitigation policies in different areas such as energy, air quality, and food systems. For example, transitioning our energy sources from fossil fuels to renewables can reduce greenhouse gas emissions while improve air quality. And we're funding research projects to provide evidence on those benefits so that the decision makers can make decisions to mitigate climate change while realizing those health co-benefits. And one of the funded projects through this funding call is this project led by IGES, leveraging co-benefits for healthy net zero transitions in Japanese and other G7 cities. This project brings 3 local city governments in Japan together, alongside with partnering cities in Austin and Paris. And I was fortunate enough to join the project team on a study tour in Paris, which provided me with valuable insights into how effectively facilitating exchanges between city governments can be. The first-hand experience that the IGES team provide to the city governments has worked really well for them to comprehend how different cities are addressing climate change and implementing actions on the ground. It was an enriching learning experience for me as well, and I'm grateful that the IGES team have allowed me to participate in the study tour. And I hope this project will succeed in translating the knowledge gained and the research conducted into tangible actions within those cities. And finally, once again, thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this discussion. please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or interests about our work. And I hope you enjoy the rest of today's event. Thank you.
Ryan-san's presentation, thank you very much. So moving on to the panel discussion now. We would like to ask several questions to the panelists. So please state if you have any comment. First, the first question. This is relating to today's theme, the resilient to the climate change. The city, where is resilient to the climate change, and also the people living in that city to be healthy and also happy. In order to create such city, what kind of policy would be important?
Thanks very much
ありがとうございます。
for sharing this important question. So I think one of the key things I want to underline is we talk a lot about the climate change crisis as something that can be scary or frightening, or something that future generations should stay up at night and worry about all the time. But I think one of the things that we see when we talk about solutions is there's also an opportunity there. And some of these opportunities exist, with some very concrete things that cities can do. So let me turn back to the example of Hachinohe, although I see this in many parts of Japan as well. Obviously, with the temperatures rising, there's need for some types of interventions that will help people cool off. And I think we're seeing, more and more cities set up cooling centers. I know in Kawasaki we have lots of cooling centers. Hachinohe also has cooling centers. Niigata has cooling centers. Austin too, and Paris as well. But I think one of the key things to recognize here is the provision of those cooling centers. Of course, they help us deal directly with the impacts of heat. And they also can bring in especially older people that might not have cooling inside their homes, so it can be targeted at senior citizens. But another thing it can do is help bring people closer together and build sort of a social capital and a sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself. So this sort of shared challenge or the shared crisis also creates opportunity for connecting people and having them feel better about this crisis and thinking of ways to actually solve it. So cooling centers is one part of it, but I think connecting it to this sort of social capital and connectivity is another piece of the equation.
はい、ありがとうございます。そうですね、まさに。
Thank you very much. Cooling center. Indeed, has been implemented in all cities. I think we have researched. However, in Europe, not many people have cooling facilities at home. Or although the city implement the cooling center, but the citizens do not come to that location. I think there are many challenges that each city needs to address. But we know that the temperatures continue to rise. So the citizens must take advantage of the cooling center as a community asset. And I think city must come up with a solution for them to be able to realize that. Any other solutions, Meba-san, please? Thank you very much. Before I answer to your question, I would like to revisit the importance of the climate change address and also the COP benefit associated to it. Climate change response and also the health impact or health benefit has been the focus of my study. But also because of the climate change solutions, the air pollution or air quality is another area that will benefit out of this solution. Because if you are living in Japan, it seems that you are unrelated to the issue of the air pollution. However, the air quality of Japan is not reaching to the guideline of the WHO. 2021, WHO issued the PM 2.5 guideline, which is the 0.55 program annually. However, in Niigata City, it is about 7 to 8, which is the annual average, and Kawasaki or Yokohama, I think it goes above 9. So WHO's guidelines, 2x density is what the cities are still having in terms of this air pollution, air quality. So energy structure shift will be done through this climate change from fossil energy to the renewable energy. I think this is not only about the health impact, but also unsolved challenges of the society, which could be kind of a forgotten air quality issues, will be revisited because of this awareness improvement. So Japanese municipalities are leading initiatives to address this pollution, air pollutions. However, for the heat stroke issues and so forth, the government seems to be very siloed. So because it is relating to the heat stroke, it relates to the medical industry and also environment. So things are tightly connected to each other. So this siloed administration needs to be more cross-sectors structured so that we can solicit for the cross-sectoral behaviors. And from a citizen standpoint, the climate change countermeasure is not something somebody else needs to take place. But we need to own that notion that we individually need to do something little by little. And this kind of forum, I think scientists are talking about these countermeasures from very scientific standpoint, and thus it is very difficult for each citizens to understand. But we need to interpret this kind of notion into much easier to understand languages or ways, so that we are able to engage more citizens or in different age groups and so forth, so that we are able to voice out these common issues with citizens. So we would like to, or I would like to increase this opportunity to discuss about this issue together.
America.
Thank you, Ms. Meifa. From American side, any opinions on this?
One of the interesting elements of our study was the relative importance of the health improvements that would come from modification of the transportation network, where there would be increased investment in pedestrian and bicycle opportunities, and that the increase of health from increased exercise, that could have significant health benefits that would even dwarf the heat and the air quality. So that, in effect, as much of our societies are becoming less active, enabling our citizens to becoming more active will have a great health benefit for them.
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Yes, indeed. Yeah, climate change countermeasures might mean, having a more, bicycle lanes, and then we can expect quite a big health benefits. Many research is backing that up, and especially in places like America, I don't know, obesity obese population is quite high in countries like that. I think this is a very important point. In Japan as well, not limited to America. I think this is true of anywhere, but a health benefit, I think core benefit health-wise, I think is also something we should keep an eye on. Now then, let me move to the second question. This is related to the first question, I believe. Earlier, Ms. Mayfair talked about the siloed bureaucracy, siloed government policies. I thought this was a problem specific to Japan, but looks like after visiting various cities in the world, I now know that this is not unique to Japan. America and Europe, siloed administration bureaucracy is a large problem. I heard that in various places. So especially with regard to this project, we look at the climate change and the health. That is a key theme for this project. So we have a health departments and environment departments in various governments. They should have a smooth cooperation in order to facilitate that. What kind of system do you think we need? Environmental departments and health departments of governments. What kind of system do we need? So anyone comment? Please raise your hand, panelists.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tetsuro. So I think one of the key points here is much of this project, as you can see, is focusing on developing some type of evidence or scientific research to try to influence a policy or action. We try to show that there are these health benefits, and then the health benefits, of course, are big, and then we hope a policymaker will include that in their plan and then make their plan more ambitious or strengthen its implementation. So this is bringing the evidence to policy is part of the story, but as Tetsuro and Meihua are mentioning, the other part of this is an institutional story, is how do we break down the different barriers between the different divisions working on these things. And what I would suggest is there are possibilities to do this, and part of it is taking some of that evidence and using it to facilitate discussions between the divisions that are working on climate change and the divisions that are working on health and the divisions that are working on social welfare. So one of the reasons we're developing this tool is to show where we see those connections right now, and then using that visualization as a way to have a dialogue about where these connections can be made stronger, and to bring people to a sort of common language about how we can work together more closely on these things. So part of that, developing the tool is trying to illustrate that. And I think that's one thing we can do. I think another thing we can do, which I see happening in Kawasaki, for instance, there's practical things you can do in terms of the administrative structure. So for instance, in Kawasaki and through this project, we've worked a lot with KERI, but we've also seen that KERI has people move into the Kawasaki city government, and I think they probably move in different divisions in the Kawasaki city government. And my experience in Japan more generally has shown that the administrative structures have that flexibility. People move around and they learn things from each other. And I think that helps create a lot of trust and understanding. And my colleague here, Tetsuro, he's with IJIS right now, but he worked with KERI for some time. And having that sort of shared sense of trust and knowledge base, I think, can help break through some of these barriers. So that human connection, I think, can break through some of the institutional challenges. And then the last point I want to mention, which we've done in this project and has been implied, is another way to break down some of these things is to take the discussion and we keep it, of course, in the city, but also create opportunities for cities to learn from each other. And I think one of the things we learned from working with Paris is perhaps the discussions on climate and health are pretty well connected there. I mean, there's always scope for improvement, but I think when a city sees that, for instance, the health department and climate change department in Paris is working closely together, that can inspire them to try to replicate some of the same types of things that that city is doing, whether it be, focused dialogues on the ground with policymakers and citizens, or whether it means having some type of more formal institutional arrangements that make sure that health is monitored as part of the climate process. I think that learning from other cities, we saw this in the U.S. even before we went to visit the U.S. before Trump was elected, and I remember one of our colleagues from Hachinohe said, how is health connected to climate change? That was the first day that we got there, and by the week that we were done there and visited Washington D.C. and Austin, not only was he had a very clear idea of how that works, but he also had the initiative to bring together the different departments in Hachinohe to talk to each other as they worked on their public climate change plan. So learning from other cities and elevating the argument above the city can help move us down back into the city and make those connections. So those are some things that came from the project.
エリックさんどうもありがとうございます。まさに
Thank you, Eric-san. Yes, you mentioned many crucial points. Okay. Anyone else who wants to comment? Go ahead, Meifa-san. So from me, I'd like to say, information communication and information sharing mode of doing so. For example, I always say this, but the CO2 reduced from X 100 ton to Y 100 ton. Yes, that's Opto talked about the things, but to general citizens, myself included. So CO2 100 tons. How much is it? It's air. It's not really visible. So how can we imagine 100 tons of CO2? We don't really know how to, picture it. That is a big problem, in my opinion. So as I mentioned earlier, climate change countermeasures requires cooperation from citizens and then the corporations. Otherwise, they are not realized. So bottom-up approach is very important in implementing climate change countermeasures. Without soliciting understanding from companies and citizens, or without the active participations from companies and citizens, there's no way we can achieve what we want to achieve with the climate change countermeasures. So in that sense, we want to have more active collaboration, discussion with the citizens. For example, EV penetration is the easiest example to show. So why are citizens hesitant to buy EVs? So after understanding why, we should implement a countermeasure to promote EV penetration. What are their difficulties? What are their concerns preventing them from purchasing EVs? That is one important point. So I think we need to make more efforts to understand. And another thing is, from the perspective of the administration, we maybe we set a target. Let's reduce CO2 in this transport sector, say 100 tons, or by 2050 reduce X tons, or hundreds of tons of CO2. Then this 100 tons CO2, million tons CO2, is equivalent to X number of EVs and so on. In this way, if it's presented this way, we can explain in an easier to understand way how we might reduce CO2 emissions, or how many houses with a solar panel should be introduced to reach a certain CO2 reduction targets and so on.
So I think it is better to explain these things utilizing something which is very close to their life, and then people will understand the 1 million ton of CO2 is equivalent of the how many EV cars. That way, I think people would understand the importance of the policy much easily. Thank you very much. Very much so. The climate change presentations, I really see a lot of those opportunities, but the numbers shared is so gigantic, like millions of tons of the CO2. It is very difficult to picture how heavy that is. And it has not been interpreted in a way that the citizen can aim towards. Any comment from the U.S. side?
Yes. In Japan, the national government expects cities to develop resilience plans and climate plans. In the United States, the national government does not have that expectation, but yet we looked at the 50 cities, and those cities developed on their own resilience and climate response plans. And in Austin, as in many cities, the process of developing a resilience plan and a climate equity plan involved consultation with community groups, nonprofit organizations, neighborhood groups. So the cities are already engaging their citizens in identifying those elements that the citizens find useful. And so in effect, the agenda for both resilience and for climate equity reflect already citizen interest. And for example, in the city of Austin, there is a planned borrowing of funds to implement further climate and resilience plans. And the process of developing the what they're going to raise money for, that is the interventions, these also are engaging the community and citizens. So there is already engagement of the citizens, and in effect, this becomes a community effort to try and identify those elements that could be useful. Over.
ありがとうございます。そうですね。まさにアメリカ。
Very much so. The citizens' engagement is really advanced in the United States, and that's something we are able to learn from.
It's okay. はい。はい。それではちょっと時間も。
So we're running out of time, therefore we would like to end this session. So we went through many presentations. The climate change response is costly and it's painstaking, and you need to bear with the current situation. That may be something people might feel, but by addressing this climate change, there will be some health benefit, and also there are other benefits as well. So if people understand those benefits, we probably can accelerate the speed of implementation of the climate change solutions. And this project, it is not only led by the Environment Division of the Kawasaki City, but the other divisions as well. Hachinohe City, Niigata, and the cities from the United States have been connected, and I think we were able to share a lot of learnings through this kind of event. We are able to learn from each other, and I think it is a very important starting point. However, what is important is that we don't end here. These learnings need to be implemented as concrete solution. So we are reaching out to the scheduled time, but maybe we can just entertain one question from the floor. Any question from the floor? Please raise your hand if you have a question. Okay. Thank you very much. So this concludes the part 2 of today's event. Yoshida-san and all the participants, thank you very much for your discussion. Mr. Yoshida, Eric, Rifa-san, David, Ria, Philip, please give them a big round of applause. We're going to change the layout, so please wait a moment.
最後に
Lastly, we would like to invite Mr. Kenichi Nakayama, Director General of the Environment Bureau of City of Kawasaki, to give us the closing remark. My name is Nakayama, Director General of the Environment Bureau, City of Kawasaki. Thank you very much for joining us today. And Yoshida-san and other speakers, and also online participants, thank you very much for joining us. In the first part, we asked the Professor Fujita to give us a speech, and also Mr. Sueyoshi, and they shared a very important messages for us, and the insights was very important. I think it is a responsibility of Kawasaki City, and I would like to take the messages importantly in my heart, and how we are able to convey the message to the citizens. I think also to the business people in Kawasaki, we need to do that. Until March this year, I have been in the head of the administrative area of Kawasaki City, and for 2 years, and I have been in the discussion about various areas like environment and also the transportation, safety, and so forth. However, as long as we use the jargons of the administration people, it won't be conveyed into the citizens. So we had tried to introduce various ways to announce our policies. And we went through many discussions how we are able to convey the messages to the citizens and changed many words. And I have tried that notion to be implemented into this City of Kawasaki administration as well, and people are probably struggling how to change those words. And we had the COP since last week, and I think this is a hot topic as well. The Kawasaki's activities would be impactful to the global market, so I would like to keep that message very important in my heart, and we'd like to continue to work on this, and I would like to ask each one of you to continue to support us. Thank you very much for joining. So this is an announcement. On your screen, you have the QR code, and you will be guided to the survey. And today's image, or maybe this presentation, will be shared on the YouTube site on on-demand basis, so please visit. So this concludes the 22nd Kawasaki International Eco Business Forum. Thank you once again very much for joining us today.